Right now, you've probably scrolled past a doomsday headline at some point today. Supervolcano, asteroid, some scientists saying this could wipe out humanity. You clicked, felt a little uneasy, and moved on with your day. Here's the thing. That fear isn't new. It's not even close to new. Humans have actually been through something like it. Not a headline, the real thing. It's older than farming, older than pottery, older than the cave paintings you've probably seen in a textbook. Somewhere around 74,000 years ago, something happened that may have crushed the entire human population down to a number small enough to fit in a single stadium section. So what actually almost ended us, and how did anyone survive it? Quick pause before we get into it. If you're into humanity almost didn't make it stories, subscribing means you don't miss the next one. Okay, so back to 74,000 years ago. The story starts on the island of Sumatra, in what's now Indonesia, at a place called Lake Toba. Except back then, it wasn't a lake, it was a volcano. And not a normal one, a supervolcano, the kind that doesn't really erupt so much as detonate. Geologists estimate the Toba eruption blasted out somewhere around 2,800 cubic kilometers of material. For comparison, Mount St. Helens in 1980, the eruption that flattened forests and made international news, produced about 1 cubic kilometer. Toba was thousands of times bigger. It's considered the largest volcanic eruption in the last 2.5 million years. Ash from that eruption has been found in India, more than 2,000 miles away, in layers up to 6 meters thick. 6 meters of ash from one event. Imagine you're a hunter-gatherer on that day. The sky doesn't just get cloudy, it goes dark and stays dark. Ash falls like snow that doesn't melt. The air is hard to breathe. And you have no idea why, because you have no concept of a volcano 3,000 miles away. Researchers believe the eruption triggered a volcanic winter. Sulfur particles blasted into the stratosphere, blocking sunlight, dropping global temperatures for years afterward. Some estimates suggest a drop of several degrees Celsius worldwide. Crops that didn't exist yet couldn't fail, but the plants and animals early humans depended on absolutely could. And that's where the story gets its sharpest edge. In 1998, anthropologist Stanley Ambrose proposed something that's become known as the Toba catastrophe theory, that this eruption caused a genetic bottleneck in early humans. A bottleneck means the population got squeezed down so small, so fast, that a huge chunk of our genetic diversity simply vanished with it, because the people carrying it didn't survive to pass it on. Here's the number that makes people's stomachs drop. Some genetic models suggest the surviving breeding population may have dropped to somewhere between 3,000 and 10,000 individuals total for the entire species, not per continent, total. 3,000 to 10,000 people. That's smaller than most college campuses. But here's the problem, and it's a real one. Not everyone agrees this actually happened the way it sounds. Because around the same time this genetic evidence was being debated, archaeologists were digging in South Africa at a site called Pinnacle Point, led by researcher Curtis Moran. And what they found didn't look like collapse. It looked like people getting by just fine, through the ash, through the cold snap, with tools and evidence of shellfish gathering continuing more or less uninterrupted. Even more striking, at a site in India called Jwalapuram, researcher Michael Petraglia's team found stone tools both below and above the Toba ash layer, meaning whoever was living there kept making tools, kept living, essentially right through the eruption without a visible break. So which is it? Apocalypse or a really bad decade that some groups just weathered? Wait, it gets weirder, because it might genuinely be both. Some populations may have been devastated, wiped out entirely in certain regions, while others, maybe in more sheltered environments, maybe just luckier, kept going almost unaffected. Humanity as a whole might have squeaked through not because everyone survived, but because enough small, scattered pockets did. Which means the honest answer to what saved us might be nothing heroic. No adaptation, no genius invention, just geography, just luck. Just being in the right river valley on the wrong week for the rest of the planet. Here's what makes this bigger than just a cool volcano fact, though. If that genetic bottleneck really happened, even a smaller version of it, it helps explain something scientists had already noticed and couldn't fully account for. Humans are strangely, almost eerily genetically similar to each other. 2 chimpanzees from neighboring valleys in Africa can be more genetically different from each other than a person born in Norway is from a person born in Papua New Guinea. For a species spread across every continent, every climate, every visible difference we obsess over, our underlying genetic diversity is oddly, almost suspiciously low. A population crash 74,000 years ago is one of the leading explanations for why. which means every single human alive today might be quite literally descended from the survivors of the most catastrophic event our species has ever lived through. Not metaphorically, genetically. You are, potentially, walking proof that a group of a few thousand people got extremely lucky on a very bad day. And Toba isn't even the only close call. Some researchers point to other bottleneck signals even earlier in our history, moments where the entire human lineage may have narrowed down to a small, fragile thread before widening out again. We like to think of our existence as inevitable. The evidence increasingly suggests it wasn't. It was closer to a coin landing on its edge over and over and somehow not falling the wrong way. Imagine explaining this to someone from that time. In 74,000 years, your descendants will build cities that scrape the sky, put machines on other planets, and one of them will be sitting in a room in artificial light watching a video about the year the sky went dark because you happened to survive it. They'd have no idea what any of those words meant. They just knew the sky was wrong, and they kept going anyway. So here's the full picture. A volcano in Sumatra blows the top off itself in the largest eruption in millions of years. Ash buries land thousands of miles away. The climate possibly plunges into a years-long winter. Somewhere in the wreckage, the entire human species may shrink down to a population you could fit in a small town. And from that thin, fragile thread, every person who has ever lived since eventually descends. So next time some algorithm feeds you another end-of-the-world headline and your stomach does that little drop, remember, we've actually been there. Not hypothetically, genetically, maybe literally. Being human might just mean being descended from whoever happened to get lucky last time the sky went dark. If you made it this far into a video about humanity almost ending, you're clearly the type who wants to know how close the other near misses were too, so stick around for those.